I can follow along.
I just toggled the live stream on.
All right.
Nathan,
So let's see. Commissioners Lazarus and Epperson are here. And I guess Commissioner Chavez will join in a little while.
Yes, sir. We're live now. So.
Okay, terrific.
Nathan.
So this is our second meeting of the Natural Resources Committee, and I think we have a quorum. So, Mr. Clerk, will you do a roll call, please?
Absolutely. Commissioner Young,
Present.
Commissioner Epperson,
Present.
Commissioner Lazarus,
Here.
Commissioner Jackson, and Commissioner Chavez. We've got a quorum.
All right. Well, so I would like to lead the invocation today, and then I'd like to ask Commissioner Epperson to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance after that. Is that all right with you, Commissioner Epperson?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you very much. When the Pledge of Allegiance comes up, Mr. Clerk, will you please show us our flag?
We will.
All right, thank you. Okay, well, so I'll lead us in the invocation now. Would everyone please join me in bowing your heads? Dear Lord, we thank you for this day and all other days. Please guide us as we meet to discuss our parish's business, and lead us by your example to show us how to create a more beautiful world out of the resources that you created for us. Please be with us all in this trying time, and please especially be with Commissioner Lazarus as he and his family go through the loss of his mother. Be with them and give them strength, and make them know that we support and love them. And we ask all these blessings in your name. Amen.
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 We would if we'd all stand, and if we have a flag in our presence, I ask that all military and veterans are rendered to stand at hand for brow salute. All others, hand across your heart. Repeat the pledge in unison. I pledge allegiance to the flag,
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
to the republic
and to the republic
for which
for
it
which it
stands,
stands, which is
one nation,
one nation,
under God, indivisible, liberty, and justice.
justice for all.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Epperson. And so unless there's any, does anyone have any agenda additions that they want to make?
We haven't received any agenda additions.
All right. Do we have any public comments, Mr. Clerk?
We do not. We've not received any public comments.
Excellent. Now that brings us on to new business. I believe our certificate of teleconference is attached. Is that right, Mr. Clark?
It is. And then after that, our first item is the water utility district.
Okay, I believe Dr. Ward is going to speak to us about that. Is that right? All right, well, so unless anyone wants to make a prefatory statement, I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Ward to tell us his report.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, commissioners, I've prepared a PowerPoint presentation. It has been emailed to you, but I'm going to do a screen share right here now so that you can take a look at it, and I will speak as we continue on through the process. So yes, thank you for having me today. I'm talking about the Northwest Utility District update. It's been about a year or so since we last had an update on the utility district. As for some of y'all, it's new. For some of y'all, it's old hat. You've heard about it for quite a few years. But the Northwest Utility District study that we've been going over, it goes back to 2008. We've had groundwater issues, and working with the Caddo Commission, the City of Shreveport, Bossier Parish, all beginning to talk about discussions on how to solve some of our drinking water issues. And after much discussion, it was determined that we collectively did not understand the current water resources that we had. So in 2011, we put together a RFP and we actually took on a study with the Shaw Group out of Baton Rouge, who presented 10 phases. Through the process starting in January of 2012, the study went through the processes of the study, and I'll go over some of those with you right now. Phase 1 actually was to identify and to redefine existing water resources. That was actually completed in October of 2012. Phase 2 was to identify and evaluate existing water supply infrastructure. That was completed in 2012 as well, late 2012. Phase 3, the development and evaluation of future growth. That was completed in October 2012. Phase 4, the feasibility of the watershed analysis for 2012. That was completed in 2012. And to answer some of your questions on another agenda item, yes, we've shared this information with the watershed folks, regional watershed project that's going on now. So they actually have, some of those engineers have our information. And if not, it's also found over on caddo.org under Public Works, under the environmental tab. All of our studies are out there for everybody to see and become familiar with if you're not already. But continuing on, during that process, we had the first 4 phases complete. So phase 5 was the stakeholders. We had several meetings throughout the parish to discuss our different options. I say parishes, we were in Bossier Parish and did a few in DeSoto as well. Phase 6, which is the economic evaluation, we needed to look at obviously dollars and cents on how this is going to be completed. That was completed in December of 2013. We didn't fund the environmental and regulatory considerations based on some of those economic evaluations. So we continued on with phase 8, which is utility district formation. Went ahead and had the contractor write a memorandum of how it would be done. That was completed in April 2014. Phase 9, which was summary and recommendations. That phase was never funded, and neither was phase 10, which was the final report. The information from phase 6 and on to phase 8 was enough while we had it at this time to move forward, mainly because of the economic conditions. But out of that phase 6, we did develop some options. There were 5 options to be precise. It was determined that option 5 would be the best one for reducing our project scope. And out of project 5, which is the map on the next slide, you can see it when we get there. Several things have happened. One of the biggest things happened is that we actually found out what our quantities of Caddo Lake. We've always heard through the years that Caddo Lake only had so much capacity, and that Texas each year would start rattling sabers when it was cool or when the temperatures were hot and water was going dry. East Texas saying that they would take the Caddo Lake water and use it in Texas and not in Louisiana. Well, it actually found out that legally the Caddo or Louisiana side of Caddo Lake had about 100 million gallons a day to utilize for water, which was plenty to serve our area. The next thing that came out of it was, of course, I-49 was in the process about the same time. And Vivian and Oil City, we worked with them. I say the parish worked with them, $1.4 million to extend and upsize water lines out to I-49. That opens up now 3 intersections on I-49 for water. So that opens it up for development going up in that area in the north part of the parish. One of the biggest things that really happened, though, was communication between water systems. Prior to us doing this study, water systems didn't really talk to one another. They were their own little empires. They dealt with it on their own. They worked together, on their own. And so communication was really starting to process. I went up there and met with most of them myself with our engineer. We started working things together. And so a lot of things have happened since then. Blanchard has taken over, should be East Morrisport. Rodessa has taken over Tyson Water System. Blanchard's working now with Beldegill Water System of possibly taking it over and managing that. And now Blanchard's actually working with Oil City to possibly forming a partnership or maybe even a possible takeover over there. But so we've also negotiated or helped negotiate some other water negotiating systems. Blanchard's also selling water to Village Water and through an agreement that we help broker with them to help complete, servicing our citizens with water. The map here is option 5. And what it addresses, it really addresses trying to create a large loop in the north part of the parish, utilizing Caddo Lake. Caddo Lake, as I mentioned earlier, had about 100 million gallons of water available, and there's plants on Caddo Lake already. You've got Blanchard and Oil City, and those are great mechanisms of trying to service all of the water systems up there. A lot of the water systems in north part of the parish are well water. The Red River alluvial. They're not great water systems. They're not high quality, but Caddo Lake water has high quality, and there's plenty of it to go around. And then it broke down at the south part of the parish, since trying to feed water south is hard, is to look at putting a plant somewhere near the port. And then that plant could service water all the way down to Four Forks, Water District 7, if they chose to get off of groundwater, and possibly even come up and serve Greenwood. Greenwood does get their water from Caddo Lake to do treating, but it's always nice to have a redundancy. This map also, it can be found at caddo.org under Public Works Environmental tab. It's part of the Phase 6 study plan. So it was kind of decided this was the best route economically. And so we started going down this path of trying to connect the dots to make option 5 reality. So in doing so, like I said, the water lines for Oil City and the Vivian took place. Blanchard took over Mooringsport. Now they're starting to talk about Beldegill, which Beldegill is actually Belcher, Dixie, and Gillum. They're all one water system. Those are 3 communities there, and you can see on the map, the one here presented by Baylor shows that water system. We can also see where we've did a grant with the state to actually to fill in some of those gaps there. It's there in pink, called the Caddo Parish water system. That's actually part of Beldegill. It was a grant process that we achieved the funds, built the lines, and then we turned it over to Beldegill. And now Beldegill and Blanchard are talking, and you can see there in the yellow that Oil City's even visiting with Blanchard. Blanchard's water plant's right there on the south side of Caddo Lake. And so it does make sense, since they have capacity in their new plant, to better service some of those areas. And so you can see real quick to kind of fill in some of the dots up to get to from Beldegill to Austin to Ida and back to Rodessa. Wouldn't take much. We're filling this circle in relatively fast with the process that we've been making. But so, as I mentioned about the future, option 5 noted the work in the north, but it also noted the work in the south. The big elephant in the room as it relates to that is the actual water plant south of town near the port. We have 3 options, or we've identified 3 options, which one would be to the parish to fully fund a District 3 project, which the plant is on the Red River near the port. The parish, unfortunately, doesn't feel that there would be the best one in the business. We're not in the water business. We don't feel like that we should be in the water business. There's folks out there who can do it more efficiently, more effectively, cost and benefit wise, even down to the type of, the amount of production they can do. Number 2, we've actually been approached by a third-party local firm to construct and operate a water plant. They would like to sell bulk water, but they need a guarantee. And that guarantee, unfortunately, for 3 million gallons a day would have to come from the city of Shreveport. We visited with the city of Shreveport at the time that they weren't interested in it. They've got their own water issues. They got their own plant issues. But I do think that's something that as the city would continue to grow to the south, that their interest in buying gallons of water there from the Red River may become more, more of an option. And then lastly, number 3 is enter an agreement that allow the parish to provide some funds, land, tax breaks, etc., to secure a firm that would build and operate a water plant and infrastructure in the District 3 or 5 option. The estimated cost to overcome a financial stability is about $50 million over the next 10 years. This number may vary a bit. This number is probably about 4 years old. It probably would vary a little bit, probably more on the more costly side. But there's firms out there. There's P3s for those of you that are familiar with private-public partnerships. And it would be pretty easy to try to find one of those, especially if you knew that you could service water all the way across the southern part of the parish to Water District 7, down to Four Forks, and even possibly up to Greenwood. Of course, there's some wildwood waters in between that would all help out. Continuing on with the future, one of the other, obviously, in the north part of the parish would be to continue to help the water companies such as Blanchard and Water District 7 and some of those in the north to actually continue their growth. And one way to do that is, or what the parish has done in the past, obviously, is funded the study that we worked on and we're demonstrating today. The other one would be to the fund, which the parish has already done, which is funding Oil City and Vivian. And then lastly was to strategically coordinate and fund future projects for the completion of option 5. I'm sure Blanchard, and I know Blanchard's working with Beldegill. I think they're talking to the state about possible funds to make some of that happen. They've got to fill some gaps in some line options and increase some lines. The jump up to Oil City, they're connected, but it's not a viable connection for long-term water usage. And then, of course, from Oil City all the way up to Vivian, there's a little elevation gradient that to be done. We need to probably create a pump station. But these are all little projects that through time and with the state help through the years, if the Caddo Parish Commission through Public Works and through administration continues to watch out, these are some strategically coordinated projects that may be able to help continue our progress of phase 5 or option 5 of our study. I'd like to thank you again. It's been about a year, maybe 2 years since we last updated the commission and the committee on the progress. Some great things have happened, mainly as it relates to Blanchard working with Beldegill, Mooringsport, Tyson, and Rodessa. Those are all great processes and progress made based on our study. I'll be honest with you, we've been very fortunate probably the last 5 years to continue having adequate rainfall. Our 10 sites for groundwater have still shown that we still have groundwater to service our communities that use groundwater. So obviously that we're not in dire need to find a reliable source of surface water while this groundwater is still available. But as you all know, a period of 1 to 2 years of drought like we had back in 2012 and 11 would put us back into a dire need. And it would be wrong for us to take our eye off of this as we continue moving forward. So I'd like to close with that. And of course, thank you for your time and offer any type of questions that you may have.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Ward.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Commissioner Epperson.
I'd like a question to get on board, please.
Please go first.
Okay. Ken, thank you for that, Dr. Ken Ward.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
I missed that. So you got your PhD since I've been gone, huh?
Back in February, I was able to graduate back in February, so it was a good thing.
February this year?
Yes, sir. February this year.
Yeah. All right. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Of course, you did bring up, the situation we had with basically just pulling mud out of wells, say around Keithville and those areas in the Southwest back in 2011, 2012.
Yes, sir.
What about in the situations with Greenwood? I've been getting people that's been asking about doing some development more south of Buncombe Road and Highway 169.
Yes, sir.
However, I think they'd have to be on the Greenwood water system. And is there any kind of collaboration with them as far as development, as far as residential or commercial,
right,
as well as are we adequately, whereas we can sustain major industrial usage of the General Motors plant with existing systems that we have in place?
Yes. So the GM plant is adequately serviced. That has water from the city of Shreveport with plenty of water service. But the area south of Greenwood, I know exactly the locations that you're referring to. And we have met with Greenwood several times on trying to identify their and what they need is they're willing to, they just don't have the funds to do so.
Dr. Ward, hold up. Sound like somebody's overriding.
Absolutely.
Hey, Jeff, I think you might be I think you might should mute.
I am so sorry. You're right.
That's okay.
My
Please go
apologies.
ahead.
Okay.
So Commissioner Epperson, you're exactly right. That area south of Greenwood, we've visited with Greenwood several times. And typically what happens with commercial developments, the commercial development folks, they come in, they build out their system. Greenwood has capacity. They've got plenty of capacity to make it work. It's just tying the two in. So sometimes it may be brought before you guys to actually maybe to help fund a project here and there, as has happened in the past. But the development is there and the capacity is there. It's just a matter of putting the two together at the right time.
Thank you.
All right, Commissioner Hopkins.
Yes, thank you,
I
Dr.
saw your
Ward,
hand
for
up.
presentation today. One of the things, there's two questions I have. Well, the first question is that system you talked about that the parish gave a grant for, you're saying that is now part of Beldegill system? Is that
Yes.
correct?
Well, we applied for the grant. We built it out. It's right there on Allen Street, and then it comes up and goes up toward the school. And that has been through the process of working with Blanchard as they're going through the process with tying into to Beldegill. They've looked. I think we're doing I think we have done it already. We've done the paperwork to turn it over to Beldegill.
Okay. Because that question did come up the other day, and
it did. And I think we got it worked out.
Okay, great. The other thing is, I do know that Blanchard is working hard to take that Beldegill system, and so they will be coming toward Belcher and Dixie. And one of the things that will do will run us also into 169 and I-49. So I think as far as economic development, it may be important. We might have to upsize some of the lines in that general area. And then the second part is with them, and they're talking with Oil City. They're talking about bringing a line back from Oil City to Mooringsport to their plant to hook in and give us that redundancy, that loop. Yeah. But we will probably, the parish is going to need help, not in money that I know of, but in a facility that the parish owns, letting us get across that. So yeah, I just want to make sure we keep that in the crosshairs.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you. The connection of I-69 or 169 having a connection there, that's a great positive. And then, of course, the historical bridge coming across Caddo Lake would be a great way to run some redundancy between Oil City and Mooringsport. Those are great things that we need to look forward on the forefront as well.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Do any other commissioners have any questions for Dr. Ward? I have a couple.
I do.
Commissioner Lazarus does. Please go ahead, Mr. Lazarus.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dr. Ward, Water District number 7 in the south end of the parish, what kind of usage are they at right now? I was thinking down the road on this potential plant somewhere near the port, and they wanted a guarantee of 3 million gallons a day. I was just curious if you had an idea of what they're using out there already.
Yeah. So first, I'll give my condolences to your mom. That was a sad thing. I lost my mom many years ago, and I always feel a kindred that something's missing ever since she's left me. So my heart goes out to you. Last time I checked, and my numbers on Water District 7, I've worked with Randy for many years out there. They've recently added on another a water well that they service their community through well water. They had at the time, they had plenty capacity of doing what they need. In fact, they even sell water down to Four Forks when they need water down there. But if I'm mistakenly right, they were about I think it was about 250,000 gallons per day. So their number was very far shy of what needed to be done as it relates to the 3 million. The deal with that is, they're a prime candidate because of that area where the soils are very lenticular, that when we have drought, their wells start to go dry really fast. They've done a great job of distributing their well system. So they have wells in different areas of that particular aquifer. So they have different pools to stage from. But at the end of the day, a 3 to 4 year drought would serve them very poorly. So surface water from the river would greatly benefit their capacity and ability to service their consumers.
coming south out of Greenwood, is that an option? Because you know it's not far geographically. I'm just thinking out loud.
You're right. There is one of the biggest hiccups with coming south out of Greenwood is Greenwood's capacity. We start to tap out after a while. You know, for anything within the Greenwood area or surrounding area, they can handle. But now you're starting to take on another water system that not only does Water District 7, they run all the way to Mansfield Road, hit Fontainebleau, hit those areas, and so the district is pretty wide. Greenwood would have to really look at a possibility of some major capacity increases, not only in the treatment, but probably of pumping the water from Caddo Lake as well.
Well, I was just curious thinking about it, about, you know, you got this big loop in the northern part of the parish, and I was had an eye toward making something similar to the southern end. Yeah. So those are the reasons for my questions.
No, we definitely on the same page with you. If you know, the southern part of the parish kind of has a little hump, and so we got to keep jumping over the hump. That's one of the problems with creating a loop. And you know, obviously, being able to have some connectivity with the city of Shreveport would go a long way with that, especially if they were purchasing water from the same system. You know, it would work out well.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Hopkins, would you like to ask another question? Okay, I saw your digital hand was up. Dr. Ward, I have a couple questions about your presentation. First of all, I wanted to know, when's the last time we spoke to Shreveport about a water sharing idea for the south part of the parish?
Yeah, I'll be honest, it was Mayor Tyler. It was her last term, was the last time that we sat down and visited with her.
Was it like 2018 or was it like 2015?
About 20. It would be 2018.
Okay.
And I know there's been some talk with the current mayor, but it hadn't got to the sit down stage at all.
Okay. It just occurs to me, you know, there's a lot of talk about perhaps leaving the city in the future by some neighborhoods in that part of the parish to form a different community. One of the reasons that they're connected to the city now is their water system. Yeah. And I'm sure that it would be valuable for the city now that there's new leadership to have another option because that's the farthest part of the city, really pretty much from Cross Lake. So it's exhausting for the city system to get the water out there.
Well, unfortunately,
I wanted to ask a couple more questions just because. Oh yeah.
Real quick, unfortunately, his staff, they're not in favor of tapping on another water plant down there. Same staff from Mayor Tyler to the current mayor. Their views hasn't changed any, so we kind of feel that going down the same path is just the same. The result would be the same if he's true to how he should be. The end product would be the same.
I see. Okay, so right, the experts in the water department are the same there, so they would probably have the same opinion.
Yes, sir.
All right. So I had a couple more questions. One is, so you said that the Blanchard plant is new.
They've just been
built a new water plant.
Yeah, so they just finally modified. They've got a capacity for over 1 million gallons a day.
Okay, great. Wow. And the let's see. And you said the water that's being tapped from Caddo Lake for Caddo Parish residents is about 100 million a day, or that's its capacity?
That's its capacity. We're nowhere near that. I think
it's not being tapped anywhere near that much right now.
Solution, our 50-year outlook was 50 million gallons. And so, 50 years from now, I don't foresee us using 50 million gallons, but it's there available to us.
Oh. Okay. That's good to know. A couple other questions. Let's see. So is there any other new, so you described a couple pieces of new infrastructure, the connection that the parish built in the loop in the north part of the parish, and then the Blanchard modifications. There's something new in Greenwood, is that right?
Well, nothing.
Just unused capacity in Greenwood.
No, sir. Nothing new infrastructure-wise in Greenwood.
Okay, so what would you say is about our average age of water infrastructure, and what would you say is its average life expectancy?
Well, that's a tough question. We have some Beldigill's got some infrastructure that's up there been 50 years in electrical conduits, and so but Blanchard probably they have the newest plants. They've got the newest infrastructure. I'd probably say our average infrastructure on a totality is 30 years plus, and they're
Right.
approaching probably a 50-year life cycle of any given place. So, and I'm not counting the city of Shreveport. I'm counting what's in rural. We've got about 14 different water systems throughout the parish, and so each one of them's got little different infrastructure, little different needs of depending on how they're servicing their community, whether it's on surface water or on groundwater. And then each one of their communities have mishmash and patchwork all through the years. So I would say we're probably in a 30-year of a 50-year life cycle as a parish as a whole.
Yeah.
Okay, so that means, to me, that means it's time to start planning
Yeah.
to replace some stuff. Yes.
No doubt.
Dr. Wilson, did you want to say something?
Oh, yes, sir. The city of Shreveport was infrastructure is 1954. And,
Yes, I knew the city was good and old.
Yes, sir. And the problem is when you own a city-owned utility system, you should be putting the money back into the system, but they have not always done that. So that's why we're trying to create a new utility district that everybody,
Right.
to even include Bossier Parish, would be a part of that process with us. And we were all amenable to that. 'Cause they also helped share the cost of the study that Dr. Ward talked about a few minutes ago. So we were all on board, but
Right.
the city numbers would make it too costly to build plants at the size we would need and make it cost effective.
Okay, but there is perhaps a possibility of a public-private partnership who would build such a thing.
Yes, sir. That would be the preferred method with these funding it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Right. And so, if we did something like that, would we need to? You said we would need to, Dr. Ward. You said we would probably need to guarantee a minimum purchase, or help somehow facilitate the guarantee of a minimum purchase.
Well,
somebody would have to guarantee.
Yeah,
it.
so there's different options. There's the selling of water options of guaranteeing, or there's some options of just putting up money or providing different mechanisms such as tax rebates, different funding mechanisms to help fund some of that. So yeah, we visited a few times with different organizations, different P3 opportunities as well. Just kind of doing all of our due diligence and preparing. Like I mentioned before, we may be sitting here talking today, but in 3 years we may be in a heavy drought, and we wouldn't have done very good jobs if we didn't have our ducks in a line prepared to make the next step.
Right. We could start a drought tomorrow. Who knows? So I have one more question. It's something I talk about a lot, and I was reminded of it when you said it's always good to have redundancy. I have a cabin, and I capture rainwater from my roof on my cabin. And according to my own calculations, a 1,000 square foot roof in Caddo Parish annually gets about, and it's a conservative estimate, about 25,000 gallons a year on it.
Yeah,
that could be captured. And that's the water that eventually goes into our reservoirs or our river.
That's right.
And it's cleaner when it's on our roof than it is when it gets into the lake and the river. Do you think there's any possibility of considering adding a redundancy of roof water rain capture in any of these systems to help, mitigate the uses that we need for groundwater even when it's plentiful, and also buttress ourselves against severe droughts in the future? Could we get a PPP that's interested in harvesting rain too?
Well, I can't say I've gone that far, but I can tell you during the drought days when we were down in the south part of the parish, meeting with the residents down there were quite a few of them that were capturing their rainwater and reutilizing that. In fact, the city actually captures the gray water and sends it to Terranium, and Terranium uses that to help cool down some of their systems. So there's a lot of ideas and a lot of options out there. Would have to look at a much broader scope of rainwater capture, but that's definitely an option. That's definitely on the table.
Cool. Well, so for future meetings when we talk about this, I would love to hear any more information that you discover about the possibilities of us capitalizing on some of that rain, because it is a lot, and is nice and clean compared to a lake.
Sure, no doubt about that.
So,
there's stormwater detention ponds throughout the parish that helps the recharging of our aquifers. So there are some opportunities there.
Right. I've also heard of people taking rainwater and pumping it directly down into aquifers after a little bit of filtering, maybe, to just fill them up without just rushing it into the ocean.
Yeah, that's true. I've heard that as well.
I would love to have to have more of your expertise on that in the future.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
I appreciate very much your presentation today. Does anybody else have any more questions? Commissioner Hopkins, I see your digital hand is still up. Is that, you want me to take it down for you? I don't know if I know how to do that. All right. Okay. Well, so if that's all the questions we have for Dr. Ward, thank you very much, Dr. Ward. And we look forward to hearing from you again very soon. Okay, did anybody else have any comments before we move on to the next agenda item? The next agenda item is the Red River Study Desedimentation and Watershed Initiative. Do we have a speaker here on that one?
Yeah, Mr. Kent Rogers online.
Yes, I thought so. Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Rogers, would you like to take it away?
Yes, can y'all hear me?
Yes.
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 Just to make sure. I sent over a couple page document to Dr. Wilson and Mr. Weaver, and I think I sent it to Jeff just maybe about an hour ago to disseminate to y'all. I guess the biggest points I can put out at this point is that although HUD has approved the overall state's watershed initiative and watershed plan, they still don't have an agreement in place, a final agreement in place between HUD and OCD. And without that, they can't spend can't spend the big money on projects and whatnot. Through the first round of application process, there were 8 projects within Region 1 that were accepted to fill in the full application process. There were several other projects submitted. Those were the initial 8 that the state said that they would fund through their pot of money. There will be an additional pot of money that goes to the individual watershed regions. We don't have that list yet, and you also have an ability to add projects to that listing for review. Within those 8 projects, the only one that's directly in Caddo Parish is the Ockley Basin Storage Project. I'm not exactly sure of the full description and details of that project, but I know there were a few other projects within the parish submitted. So hopefully we can work those into the portion that would come directly to the region, and then also within phases 2 and 3 within the process. We are having the Watershed Commission is having a meeting on Tuesday, July 14th. It will be available through Zoom. I believe it's through Zoom. As part of that, they'll be having the regional flood risk presentation. This is a presentation that the state is doing with all the watershed areas. Will actually be, I believe, the 3rd region that they'll be making that presentation to. So I encourage all of y'all to participate in that and to view that meeting. We have put together the initial steering committee for Region 1. There were certain members, there's members represented for each parish, and then 3 at large. We were required to have certain credentials with some of those members. And I'll read those out to you. From Bienville Parish, it's Rodney Warren. Bossier Parish, it's Butch Ford. From Caddo Parish, Ali Mustafa. From Claiborne, Dennis Butcher. From DeSoto, Steve Brown. From Grant, Morgan Briggs. From Natchitoches, Rick Nolan. From Rapides, Matt Johns. From Red River, it's Shane Hubbard. From Sabine, William Ruffin. From Webster, Nick Cox. From Wynn, it's Mike Carpenter. The 3 at large are Lindsay Goody, John Michael Moore, and Zazelle Dudley. They'll be going over those initial projects, but also helping to put together bylaws and the full, bigger, broader list of participants that should be included in the I believe it's called the overall steering committee for the region. That doesn't have to be in place for I believe it's the end of the year or early part of next year. Several of the things have gotten pushed in time frame due to the lack of having that agreement in place between HUD and the state at this time. And with that, I'll take any questions, comments.
All right. Do any commissioners have any comments, or anyone else in the meeting want to ask Mr. Ward a question about his presentation? Dr. Wilson, did you have something to say?
It was Mr. Rogers making the presentation.
I'm sorry, Mr. Rogers. Yes.
And just for everyone's reference, I sent out an email that does have the attachments that Kent was using in his presentation.
You sent that just now?
Yes, you should have received it in the last few minutes.
Yes, I just got it. Thank you. Okay, great. Mr. Rogers, can I ask one question? You said there wasn't an agreement between HUD and, is it OCD?
It's the Office of Community Development, the state level. The overall program has to be, it's an agreement with HUD and state of Louisiana through OCD.
I see.
From that, they developed the separate regional watershed commissions and watershed areas. But that their overall proposal was agreed upon. They told everybody to move forward, but they still haven't gotten their formal agreement, contract agreements put in place yet. Not sure what the delay is. I'm sure COVID has part of the, plays part of that. I will mention that when on part of that, I gave you some hyperlinks to a couple of things. One of them has the eligible pre-application projects for the entire state on it. I will note that you'll notice that there's region 3, 5, 6, and 7 seem to have an exorbitant number of projects listed, but you have to remember that those regions include what are called the HUD mitigation areas, which are to receive 50% or roughly 50% of all the funding for the program. So they've got a whole lot more projects in their area than our area and some of the others.
So, Mr. Rogers, could I also ask you, the purpose of the watershed initiative, it's primarily to prevent flooding, is that correct?
Well, there's two pieces that go along with the watershed initiative. One is the portion that we're doing, which is more of some of the outreach and looking for projects and looking for things to help with watershed, to help with flooding and flood mitigation and whatnot. The second piece of that is some overall modeling that's being done for each of the watershed districts. Those models are slightly different than the outreach districts just because of the flow patterns and whatnot. For our district, it's Atkins Engineering is the one doing the modeling work. I'm not sure how deep into that they are yet. I know they're still in the process of processing and getting some of the LiDAR data to do that for the whole region. But the overall intent is to help with flood and flood mitigation, yes.
Terrific. Well, so I would like to ask a question that relates to another agenda item without really getting into that agenda item. I have a neighborhood in my district that is very concerned about flooding, and they would like their drainage improved. And I have told them several times that I thought that would be expensive, but if we could get some state money to improve their drainage a little bit, that would be nice.
Well, I will tell you that as I looked through the list of some of the other areas that got some money and some of the things that are out there, it's
Mhm.
my impression that those may be more of the types of projects that the state is moving into that next phase and looking for funding for it and working to fund. I don't see this pot of money as being used for like dredging the Red River or dredging Caddo Lake or any of those those bigger mass type projects. It looks like they're looking at
Right.
more of the smaller, more regional type projects.
Right, thousands of little projects. Yeah.
Yes.
Great.
Yes.
Okay. Terrific. Okay. Well, I will follow up with you about that because Dixie Garden is the neighborhood I'm talking about, and it's got a ditch they want worked on to get the water out of there faster. And I would love to find a pot of money to help pay for it, and I bet Dr. Wilson would like that too. More commissioners' hands up. Does anyone want to ask Mr. Rogers a question? Is that Stephen? Are you waving your hand?
Yeah, I was curious. You said it was a ditch that they were trying to get cleaned out.
Well, there's it's a ditch and a culvert that goes under 70th Street, which is really the only exit for water from the neighborhood. And I'm not a scientist about it, but there is speculation that if the culvert were wider, or if there were two culverts there, the water could get out faster, or maybe they could put in some kind of like pump that sits in place and is ready to go all the time. I don't know.
So what does it run off into? What does it run off into?
It goes off basically into the river. There's like a lake right next to the river. Is that right, Dr. Wilson?
Sorry about that. I was on the phone with one of my directors.
Question.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I can answer that. I mean, it goes into Red River.
Tim Weaver knows.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
It goes into Red River.
So doesn't the Red River Waterway Commission, since it's in a tributary, I think the Red River Waterway Commission says help support some issues there. I believe the Red River Waterway has a responsibility to the Red River as well as the tributaries that contribute to the Red River Waterway. So there's something that kind of put there as food for thought. But I do believe that the Red River Waterway, I have to look back at the language and what they are responsible for. But I thought anything that attributes to it, they can help kind of mitigate or help market or whatever. In this case, it looked like mitigation. But I thought the Red River Waterway Commission, I think Commissioner Burrell still sits on that board as well. So
yeah,
maybe we're having a conversation with them on that.
Good point. Thank you, Commissioner Jackson. Mr. Weaver, do you want to respond to Commissioner Jackson's thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's a Corps of Engineer and the levee board and a subdivision. Yeah, that's behind the levee, and it's just we have offered some mitigation, and we have mitigated in there, and we've done some projects in there, and it's behind the levee, and when it rains, the residents think they're going to flood, but there's not been that many houses that actually flooded in the last 25 years that I've been here.
Understand, but if the Red River Waterway Commission, who receives taxes from Caddo Parish, if they have, and I don't know for sure, I could be wrong, but I just thought that they had some obligation to their tributary. So if we're saying that it runs off into the Red River, that would be a tributary. So I assume. I'm just kind of putting it out there, just food for thought. I don't think it hurts to ask and investigate and look into it or not. Yeah, we'll try to look up for something. Thanks, Tim. Thanks, John.
Cool. Thank you. All right.
Can I add one
Todd,
last final comment?
Commissioner Hopkins?
No.
Oh, yes, please.
Yeah, and it has more to do with the previous presentation in the utility district. And Dr. Wilson, you may recall, one of the things that I think kind of talked about this some when they initially started that study work, in terms of the utility district, and it's not water and wastewater related, but depending on the wording that's been used for the creation of those districts, I encourage that you make it as broad and as general as possible. One thing that Lafayette has been able to do, since they have a utility district, is also run fiber optics and provide internet service and whatnot. And especially in this day and age of not getting a lot of broadband cooperation out in the rural parts of the parishes, depending on the wording of that, if we can find some funding, that may be a way to get some broadband services out to those areas.
Yeah, got it, Ken.
It's a good idea.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, so thank you very much, Mr. Rogers. I appreciate your presentation very much. If nobody else has any questions for Mr. Rogers, maybe we should move on to the next agenda item, just to keep it moving. The next agenda item is, herbicide spraying and vegetation management. Okay, well, so this issue came up to in one of my first commission meetings when a citizen came, and I've spoken to Tim Weaver about this before. A citizen came and said that chemical was being sprayed in an area that was pretty clearly a water drainage area near a road, I think maybe under power lines, in order to keep it clear for utilities. I'm not sure. He said that it feeds in pretty directly to Cross Lake at this spot. He showed me on a map where it was. I don't remember the exact spot, but then I asked Mr. Weaver to let me know what sort of our herbicide and vegetation management regimen was like. It looks like we spend a lot of money on the herbicides, which I understand because we have a lot of territory. But I wanted to, since we were talking about water and clean water and safe water, I wanted to raise this issue to our administration in the committee, just to start us thinking about other ways that we might conceivably control our vegetation, to consider if there's any other options. Two options have occurred to me. I'm not sure if they would be permissible in all places or acceptable in all places. One of them is to use foraging animals like goats or sheep to eat the grass periodically. I did some research, and Todd, I wanted to ask you about this. I think there was, at least recently, a goat mowing service located in Oil City.
That's
Are
correct.
you familiar with that?
Yeah, there was, yes.
Okay. Is it no longer operating?
I'm not sure. I have not talked to her in the last few months, so I'm not sure.
Okay. Well, I don't know her name.
Yeah, we got her name and contact information. We talked to her before.
Okay. I mean, I would love to, find out if we could get a number together for how much it would cost to try it out in an area, see how long it functions for, maybe do it in our most sensitive areas where we think water might quickly get into the lake or something like that. Just if it's possible to find out some kind of quote from that service, or maybe there's another service around that does something like that. Dr. Wilson, you or Mr. Weaver could, just make a call or find out.
Yes, sir. We'll revisit that, because we did talk to her once before. I think she came to one of our meetings to give us a presentation. But I just want to be mindful, Commissioner Young, that most of the spraying that we currently are doing is in our right-of-ways for highway road issues. That's a lot of spraying for vegetation control, safety.
Right.
So we don't get into a lot of other areas with spraying other than those primary areas of travel, the roadway. And it is the most cost-effective method to control that.
Okay. Well, so in that case, I understand, and right next to a roadway isn't where you want a bunch of goats either. I still want to try to somehow be responsive to this citizen's concern. And Mr. Weaver told me that you receive concerns routinely about spraying, not in high numbers, but I think if you consider how few people are likely to witness it and go to the effort of commenting on it, it might be, a significant number of concerned people. So maybe there's like some places where we could try it and some places where it wouldn't work, but I thank you for your willingness to look into that, Dr. Wilson.
Okay.
I see Commissioner Epperson's hand.
Yes,
Commissioner
sir.
Epperson.
Dr. Wilson and Dr. Ward, I guess the concern may be of the citizens too, whether the herbicides that we're using,
Yes, sir.
are they poisonous or are they detrimental to the animal or the fish?
No, sir.
Or are they environmental friendly?
Environmental friendly, because actually we actually, the Department of Fisheries and Wildlife sprayed Caddo Lake with herbicide, with an aquatic herbicide for this giant Savina plant. So they sprayed directly in the water. So it is environmental for the consumers to drink.
Is that the same herbicide that we're using on the ground?
It may be different. Different application require different chemicals. But as it relates to what we use environmentally safe. And if we'll have to take a look at that closely. If what we're doing is resulting going into a tributary, then we have to check that out. But certainly we do use the contractor use what's applicable safety wise, and we do get on the public safety documents related to the product that we use. But in most cases, they are environmentally safe.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Epperson, yeah.
Dr. Wilson, could you give us the name of those chemicals? And I think a lot of time during application, you get what you call MSDS.
Yes, sir. We do have. Yes,
right.
Sir.
So would you get copies of that to those of us that maybe have those concerns, and that way we can better enlighten our constituents?
Okay.
I'll get those to you.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you very much, Mr. Weaver. Thank you, Mr. Epperson. Mr. Lazarus, do you have something to say?
I do. I just wanted to point out that this spraying that the parish is funding is done by a third-party contractor. Nobody in the parish is doing any actual spraying. Am I correct in that?
That's correct, sir. You're right. That's correct.
Okay, that's all I wanted to say. I just wanted to point that out to John, that we are paying for it, but we're not the ones doing it.
Right. Yes.
That's all. Thank you.
I understand that, Commissioner Lazarus. And one of the things that I wanted to respond to Commissioner Epperson's comment, the citizen who complained about this at the commission meeting had the name of the chemical and had read some of the warnings on the chemical that suggested that it, may have been being used imperfectly in this spot. And since it's not the parish doing it ourselves, I think we should probably try to have a trust but verify attitude about it. And it never hurts to double check when it comes to public health, especially near our water supply. So I appreciate Mr. Weaver getting us that information and Dr. Wilson's openness to thinking about it, even though it's a long-standing practice. And let's see. So does anybody else have any things to say about this topic? If not, all right, let's go. So the next agenda item, I already sort of skipped around and mentioned, but Dixie Garden would like, some kind of improvement for their drainage exit from their neighborhood. And maybe our conversation today can help facilitate a new evaluation of that to see if it's possible. And I suppose nobody else wants to comment on this neighborhood in my district. So that might be everything for our meeting today.
Okay, sounds good.
All right. All right.
Mr.
So,
Epperson has a question.
Commissioner Epperson.
If nothing more, I just want to say good meeting, and I move for adjournment.
Okay.
Thank you. The chair will second your motion to adjourn, and so will Commissioner Lazarus. Looks like we all agree. Thank you very much.
All right.
Yeah. Happy 4th of July, everybody.
Thank you.
Happy 4th, Dr. Wilson.
One more thing. Don't we have a special meeting tomorrow, Mr. Clerk?
We do. We have a
We do.
special meeting tomorrow and a committee meeting if, for those of you that are on the appropriations committee. They'll meet at 2 and our special meeting is at 1.
Thank you.
Terrific.
Very
Well, I'll
good.
see you at 1
Thank
then.
you.
Thank you all.
Take care.